Hey to the Fused community. Okay, y'all, we are talking about something that I think is pretty important for today's show. We are jumping into the 5 questions to ask before you get married. A little bit of an unconventional and traditional perspective, so we definitely want to hear your thoughts. Let's jump into it. Thank you for tuning in. You are listening to Fused, transparent conversations for marriage, family, and relationships. We invite you to join us as we discuss topics that are thought about but not talked about. So tell your friends and family to check us out. And as always, join us on all of our social media handles, Fused and FusedMarriages.com.
What's up with you today, Miss Tristin?
Doing everything is everything.
Do people know your middle name? You used to go by your middle name, right?
I still do. It's still my handle.
Tristin with Chaos. I didn't want to publicly just kind of, you wasn't ready for people to kind of, but
anyway, for ready? 2 decades going by my middle name. Mm-hmm.
That's what's up.
Mm-hmm. So we're here again.
Yes, we are.
Back
I'm excited.
At it again.
I'm excited.
Yeah, well, we have another interesting one, so I'm always curious to hear your perspective and, of course, your perspectives. So make sure that you comment and let us know your thoughts on this topic. Also share with your friends and family and start discussions where you are. So today's topic is 5 questions to ask before you get married.
I'm excited about this. First, I got a little giddiness about me because it's just, maybe because it's me being me.
It's you.
But I'm excited about, because we get a lot of questions sometimes, right? Mm-hmm. About, when should I, how will I know, this, that, and the other, right? And it's hard to answer question, but I think these questions may be able to maybe allude to maybe, give you some insight on what you should be thinking about.
Yeah. Well, here we go, because there's always like these 2 sides, like hearing what you think and the topics that you came up with. So you said that the basis of our discussion is helper. Please explain.
Well, for us, and we talk about it all the time, right? In the event that you want to get married, everybody doesn't want to get married, but in the event that you want to get married, you have to see the person you're actually tying up with or getting in this marriage with as a helper.
Okay.
And that could be a sensitive term, right? People help or this, that, and the other. But you have to see it, in my opinion, I think in your opinion too, you can talk about it. But if you're not seeing it like, hey, I can't do something without this person, then the question should be, okay, hold on, why am I with them? Mm-hmm. If I can do everything I need to do.
Like I don't need them.
I don't need them. They just kind of like, okay, well, they just come along for the journey. Then I would question and say, okay, are you sure that's the person you need in your life? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think the term helper has kind of been weaponized because it's been used, at least in the Christian context, for like a woman is a helper to her man, kind of versus this, we mutually help one another. We build each other. We help each other accomplish the thing. So it's become this, thing where women are relegated to, okay, I don't necessarily have a purpose outside of helping. And for those of us that want to help and want to serve, but also want somebody that's, okay, you're building what God has called me to do, and I'm building what God has called you to do, and there's an intersection of the two because now we are one, then there can build like kind of this resentment. And I don't know if that's everybody's story, but I know for myself, that was one of my concerns in getting married before I met you was I'm now all of a sudden I'm going to have to give up all of my hopes and dreams and all of the things I thought that I was, called to do or enjoy doing. I wasn't going to be permitted, quote unquote, to do those anymore. So I think that's where the challenge with the word helper comes. But when we really dig into it and we say, hey, I'm here to help you build and you're here to help me build. It's not it's reciprocity in the relationship. We're in this together. We're building this thing. How do we see the overlap? Where does it happen? In what seasons do these things shift? I think then you're able to have a real mutual respect and love and joy in what it is to help somebody build. Does that make sense?
No, that makes complete sense. And I'm going to tell a short story just off of basically what you just said.
Yeah.
And a real thing that we actually had dealt with, right? So we were in the process. We were engaged at the time. It's going almost 10 years ago now. It's kind of crazy to even say, right? You're like we were engaged at the time, 10 years ago or so. And then a family member asked me, he said, "Hey, are you gonna let Tristin keep doing or do more in this entertainment and this writing and this, that, and the other?" And I was baffled by the question.
Yeah.
Because in my mind, I don't know how I portrayed my thought whenever she asked it, but I was like, in my mind, I was like, well, if God has called her to it, why wouldn't I help her do that?
Yeah.
And it was a serious question, because I think what you just explained, right? Sometimes it's only a one-way street.
Yeah.
And it's typically, right, the man really kind of saying, okay, you help me. Mm-hmm. Not necessarily the husband saying, you know what, I got your back too. What are you trying to do?
Yeah.
But that was our foundation, right? Mm-hmm. What we kind of like really established, saying, you know what, no, you're going to help me, yes, but I'm absolutely going to help you. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of something people, they know about us.
Yeah. Well, there you go. So, and I think that happens a lot in particularly complementarian homes, where there are very specific gender roles. And we've talked about gender roles on this show before, but sometimes I think that particularly women find themselves having to wait or hold. I remember being told by a friend of mine that I should wait to do everything until my kids graduate high school. And it was such a devastating blow, because I think at the time our son was maybe like 2. And I was like, wait, I shouldn't do anything outside of, being a mom, which is a super noble and amazing, and I love being a mom, but I also knew that there were other things that I was called to do in tandem with it. And so for a peer of mine, a friend of mine, to say, put all of that to the side, just do mom, and that's all, kind of felt like, well, maybe that's what, you do in this season, and that might be, your bandwidth, which is really phenomenal, because being a mom is a blessing. Yeah. But for others, I think it's challenging to say, like, these are your borders that I'm putting on you, not that God's put on you, not that you're putting on you, but this is what society says that you can do. And this is what a helper looks like. So I think that, at least from a baseline, from my perspective for this conversation, it's really interesting to think of the word helper as much more expansive, to think of it like as two people building this organization, this company, this life together, where we're co-owners in the life that we're creating. And maybe that looks like, hey, you helping me in the kitchen and me helping, you with the laundry, or whatever those kind of menial, that's just an example. But you're really partnering is more of how I see that helper. We're partners in this thing. So anyway, so that's the topic of today, and we'd love to hear your experience. If you have, much like me, kind of heard these gender roles of what helper is, and if that's been your experience, because I know for some of us there have been, and some of our listeners and watchers, that's been theirs, and then what that looks like in the context of marriage. So your first one, we do go back to the book of Genesis, for kind of our foundation, 2:20. But for Adam, there was no suitable helper was found. And then you kind of come out of that story with the creation of Eve. And this was a suitable partner, suitable helper. So, these are the questions.
5 questions.
The 5 questions
Let's do it.
that you ask. These, I'm going to see if I agree or disagree. These are going to be interesting. Okay. Do they fill in a gap that you can't do alone? And you said specifically not a financial gap. Talk about that.
Well, I think the financial gap is the easy one, right? Like, hey, I need some help financially. People, and not saying you shouldn't consider that, but it has to be bigger than the financial piece, right? We'll say you don't have the money, or you don't have the money. But like, is that just the drawing line of where everything kind of stops at? But the idea that a person, a wife in my case, should fill in a gap, like, you know what, I got to say, you know what, I got some blind areas, I got some areas in my life that I need help with. Yeah. So first of all, there's a vulnerability there, saying like, I don't have it all together. I may have it together, which is what you should, but I may not have every single piece where I see myself today, where I want to see myself 5 years from now. Yeah. In order for me to get that, I may need an amazing partner to help me achieve that, push me to a new level. Yeah. Uncover some things I need to be thinking about and seeing differently. You may bring a different skill set, right? You're talking about the financial piece. Maybe I'm poor with money. I need somebody to help me kind of better manage what I do have. So yeah, helping closing that gap maybe is something that's definitely does that person that you're looking at close a gap, fill in the gap for you.
Yeah, I think a key word you said in there was being able to be vulnerable and recognizing I don't have all the answers. Because I know, depending on what age you are, when you're looking at marriage, sometimes it's like, well, for some women, well, I gotta do it all myself. I've come this far. Right. I'm not trying to raise anybody. I'm not trying to do all of this. And sometimes I've heard on from a lot of men, like, well, I've got my money together, as if that's potentially like the thing, like that's the sticking point, and not necessarily recognizing, hold on, I can't build here, I can't do this here, I have some areas of weakness. So I think even recognizing that, regardless of gender, and being able to say, yeah, I would love a partner that's great at this, or that I see this whole, and sometimes you might not even know that until you meet them, be like, man,
that's true.
They really help me with this aspect of myself. I tend to work a lot, and they really bring a lot of fun into my life and a lot of play, and they help me alleviate that. Or, man, they bring a lot of structure. I'm an idea person, and they're able to help me organize some of my thoughts, or whatever the thing is. So I think really pointing out that it's non-financial, I think, is really important, because I think that a lot of times people would focus on, well, how much money are they bringing to the table? Like, how can they help provide? So I think that's a big one. Okay.
Absolutely.
Number 2, do they push you more towards your God-given assignment?
Yep. So I think we both believe, and you can chime in on your end, that, we all are on some kind of assignment, right? Of trying to achieve something, trying to grow something, trying to build something, right? And the assumption is here that you know what your assignment is, at least kind of you have some kind of directional place of where you're trying to go. Because in order for you to ask that question and say, do they help fulfill that, I have to know that I'm going after something. Even if I'm not completely clear exactly what the something is. And I think that's important, because it has to be alignment.
Yeah.
Right. If I want to be, a politician, and you got a history when you're a stripper, and it comes out that, I'm trying to be, vice president of the United States, and my wife is a stripper. Like, I'm just saying, I'm giving you the contrasting. Do they help? Do you know what I mean? Do they push me toward that, or could they draw back from where I'm trying to go? And I know you scrunching up.
I'm just saying the example is just a little different than I expected.
It just may not match.
Okay,
and
right.
Not to say that, I'm not saying anything wrong with, some people have, got different lives they lived and maybe moved on past that.
Yeah.
But you have to take that into consideration.
Yeah.
And are you willing to handle that? Can you do that? And are they going to push you toward where you're trying to go? Or are they going to be a hindrance? That's a pretty extreme example. Maybe not. I don't know. Maybe people have dealt with that. I don't know.
Maybe not. No, I think you actually pointed out some things, because some people do have things in their history that they're trying to move beyond. And there are some things that kind of can pull us back. Right. Any lifestyles, peers, all of that. But when you partner with somebody, are they pushing you towards the God-given assignment? Are they pushing you to being better? Are they saying, hey, there are some things that you can leave behind, because I'm here to help us go forward? And whether that's, whatever that lifestyle is, or it's personal habits, like, hey, I need to, I'm trying to get healthy. Is somebody pushing you towards healthier eating, or is it somebody pushing you towards better mental health, or taking care of yourself, or whatever the thing is? That are they pushing me towards all of the things that I'm called, created to be? Because there are, if you're partnering with somebody that's cool and comfortable with you being where you are, and seems to be uncomfortable with you growing, and changing and altering, then there's a problem. We actually had this conversation yesterday, or at least a portion of this, because I was talking to Michael just about how I feel myself shifting. Anybody else feel themselves shifting? Like how I feel things in my life changing, and how, for me, there at least at one point, and sometimes kind of comes up, it's like, man, is this going to be okay for our marriage? Is this going to, because I think that you either grow together or you grow apart. So sharing with Michael, hey, these are the things I'm thinking about. These are the ways that I'm changing my perspective. These are some of my concerns with shifting in these different directions. How do you feel about this? Let's walk through this together. Let me be open. Which those of you that have watched me before, that's not really my MO. That's something that I'm growing and have grown into, as I've, grown in marriage and in relationship with Michael. But just being like, hey, I'm changing in these ways. Mine would be kind of like, I'm changing, so that's it. Like, if you catch it, you catch it. If you don't, then sorry. But it wasn't ever like a intentional thing. I always kind of thought it was internal. So the idea of being able to share whatever you're pressing towards and whatever you're pressing away from with your partner, and them saying, yeah, I got you. Let's go. Let's do it. And that's also presuming that they have elements of wisdom, that you really are trying to grow into better together. Like if somebody's pulling you back into a lifestyle or taking you to a place that you have already been, that you're like, hold on, I'm trying to shift, I'm trying to change, then be weary.
I want to give people, I guess, an answer to, because you mentioned something about the shifting, right? And the question, I think other people may have that same kind of maybe concern of like, I'm changing. Can they handle me? Can they handle this shift, this, that, and the other? I want to give my response, what I gave to you, not because I think it's so great, but I think it was really heartfelt, what I really believe, right? And what I told you is that, and this is not for you, but just for everybody else, is like what I told you is that, you know what? I'm expecting you to change and grow, right? I came into the relationship, came into the marriage, knowing that you weren't a finished product and that you're going to be expanding beyond what I see right now. Yeah. And I believe that God had given me the capacity to handle all the shift and turns and change that you were going to experience. And I want to give you confidence in that, because that is a serious concern people could have. Yeah. But I think if husbands or wives, for that matter, have that kind of approach, saying, okay, you know what? The person I married 5 years ago is not the same person I'm married to now. Am I willing to build and kind of grow around that new person, that they're being pushed into that new assignment, that new thing that they're thinking about, that new career, that new education, whatever it is, right? Yeah. Because if you try to hold somebody back to the place of where you married them at, I think that's what problem. Well, you know what? You didn't change. Yeah. 15 years have gone by. I hope so, right? But people still kind of use that as like a reason of why they're upset, or they like, man, I don't know what's going on. They've changed. So,
yeah, that's big, because I know that, man, you've changed, or you're not doing this anymore. I think is probably something that people hear, and that you're fearful. Will they still love me if I ... Right. The real, and it's interesting because we say these vows when we get married, and then you really of course you think about them ahead of time, but then when you really start thinking about, man, real life happens, right. What if real life really does happen? Will they still be there? And so I think thinking about that from extreme contexts, but also to something, a little bit more modest. Like, what does that look like if I want to change my career, or I want to go back to school, or I want to have another baby, or I lose a baby? What does that look like if your spouse goes through depression, or if they have an area that they're struggling with again that you thought that they were done with? What does that look like? And that's, I think, where you find real love.
That's good.
Another thing that you have down here, number 3.
Let's go.
Are you an option?
Ooh-wee. I think this is a big one. I think this happens subtly, and it happens often.
Okay.
I think, and people don't necessarily think about, like, when they say, I would often put it in the context of, I'm choosing between this girl and this woman, or this man and this man. Like, this, that's typically like the reference point, right? When it's oftentimes it's like, you know what? Am I choosing between you and my kid? Am I choosing between, and say that you might have, have previous kids from previous relationship, previous, whatever have you, right? Am I choosing between you and my career, right? You're going to have to wait until I get this straight before I can fully invest and be with you. And then when I get with you, you're going to have to fit into this career thing that I built. And that mentality, I think, is very dangerous.
Sir.
Very dangerous.
You just named two that I think are super serious.
Yeah.
Like, I think, yes, are you an option? I think most people would think, because that's what I thought when I read, I was like, are you an option? Most people think, is it between her and her or him and him? Like, you in the mix somewhere. But to think like, hold on, I got you, but first let me get my things. Let me get my job. Let me build my career. And then I'll come back. And like you said, fit into this. Or I have these kids, they more important, or they're number one and you somewhere down the line. I think that's major. But what do you do then? Like how would the person, like they're not necessarily trying to make this person an option. How do you address that?
Well, to me, I think it's an awareness thing for one, because sometimes you got to bring people the awareness, like, hey, you know what? It seems like you're putting your career ahead of our relationship or where you wanted to go. You just like, that's the most important thing to you. And I don't want to compete with that if that's where you want, right? I mean, you got to put that front and center, get the opportunity to, first of all, digest that, because they may not know it. And if they want to keep going down that path, they made their answer. They chosen what they wanted to choose. And that's a tough pill to swallow. They may be a great person. They may be loving, do all sincere. When they with you, they with you. But when they not, they ain't. Okay,
so to that point, what if the conversation goes a little something like this?
Okay, talk to me.
You know, hey, I feel like you're putting your career or your kids ahead of me, whichever one. And there's a number of other examples. It could be your mom or your family or whatever. And you're putting them in front of me. And they say, well, if you leave, I'm going to have them. I'm going to have my family. My family's still going to be there if you walk out the door. My kids are still my kids. They were here before you. Or, you know, my job, I'm trying to get somewhere and you're trying to hinder me. You know, there is a defense, you know, that why people are doing the things that they're doing. What would be the response? Does that mean that they are not sure about you? Is it a trust thing? What is it?
I mean, first of all, I think that's a loaded question, and it can go a lot of answers go a lot of different ways. But I can at least say this to what you just asked. It definitely probably is a trust issue.
Okay.
And not necessarily trust with that other person, just even trusting in the idea that relationship could last for an eternity, for a lifetime, right? The idea that, like, you know what, somebody's going to love me through all my flaws. So they lean on the people that they're used to, or the money that they're used to getting from a job standpoint, or like you said, the mom or the family members or the kids. You know, they don't think that love is going anywhere. But they look at you and say, you know what, well, I don't know if I trust it. You know, I believe that your love, you're going to be around.
Yeah.
So it comes down, really not, you can give all the perfect love that you want to give. And if they're not seeing that on the inside, so they got some work to do, in my opinion, on really understanding, like, okay, hey, can I be fully trusting with my heart and my life to say, hey, I'm willing to say sacrifice and go through the journey with this person.
Interesting. That could be probably a whole show.
That can be. No, that can be.
By itself. So that's interesting. Okay, so for the sake of today, I want to get through these 5 questions. Okay, number 4. Do they challenge you to be a better you?
You touched on it already a little bit, right? You use the health version of it, right? When you're talking about, hey, somebody's trying to maybe be a little more healthy. And I think that was a great example, because it's like, well, okay, I'm trying to be more healthy. The person I'm with or I've found, they kind of like, hey, you know what? Go ahead and eat these 8 hamburgers. You know what? I'm gonna cook with all this grease, that, and the other. And you haven't been doing that. Yeah. And they're feeding into the idea of, like, they're not challenged. Okay, you know what? I know what I do. But I'm going to try to help you and challenge you to continue to be the best part of you. That's what you're striving for. And hopefully y'all come along the journey together at some point. But I should not be like, if I'm not even challenging you to be the best part of you, then I think that's problematic. The health one is the easy one. It could be career. It could be, you know, as a parent. It could be whatever, right? As a friend. Right? Hey, you know what, Michael? You told me, you know what? That ain't right. I did something the other day, y'all. I ain't gonna tell the whole story because I feel kind of embarrassed about it still. We were at a soccer match and I was being coach thing. And one of the parents did something. I ain't gonna talk about what they did, but they did something. And I'm like, in my mind, I'm like, you know what? They know what we were doing. I'm not gonna let them walk off. And Tristin was like, Michael, that ain't right. You got to go get them. And I fought it. I ain't gonna lie to you. But the fact that you challenged me on being a better me, I'm just saying I'm flawed. I ain't got no problem saying it. I didn't. Ari, go get them. I didn't even go do it.
If they ever watch, they're gonna know.
Maybe, but I say, you know what? I thought about, you know what, and that wasn't right. But the fact that you challenged me to be a better me in that moment, And it was a loving way, wasn't even no condemning way. Like, you know what, Michael, that's not right. And I respect you for that, and I'll allow you to do that. The idea say allow the aspect of I'm open to, like, you know what, I can be, oh, stop talking like that. Mm-hmm. I kind of I'm opening up for, I trust you in that way to kind of like, okay, she's not just saying to be saying it. Mm-hmm. It's something I need to like deal with. So, I mean, it happens, right? But you challenge me to be the better me in that scenario.
Oh, you're great.
That was good.
You are. But I also wanted to add to that. So the idea of you want somebody, I think, that challenges you to be better, and then also cheers for you as you're making better decisions.
That's good.
Because I think that sometimes we can push and there's no reward. It's like, man, you always, and then it becomes, you're picking at me. Like, man, you're always telling me to do this and do this, versus like, how can, going back to that partner one, how can we help each other? So if you're trying to eat healthier, okay, maybe I start cooking healthier meals, or I try to incorporate different things. Or if you're trying to go, back to school, I start looking at schools with you. I start looking at the finances. How can we make this work? What scholarships are available? Or if you're trying to be a better parent, creating opportunities for, parent-kid play dates and those kinds of things, because there's always an opportunity, if you care about somebody, to not only to challenge them, but setting them up for success. Like, how can I help set you up for success? So like in that example, like, okay, you weren't in that moment feeling that, but I'm going to make sure that it's taken care of. So I'm going to send our daughter, hey, go do this, take care of this, so that daddy is covered, so that it's never, nobody can ever look at you with shame. And then along the way, that was the right thing to do. That was the right thing to do. Or whatever the thing is, looking for opportunities. How can I cover my spouse? How can I help them? How can I challenge them? But then how can I cheer for them? Hey, great job. I'm glad you're on it. You're doing it. Those kinds of things I think are important, taking the opportunity to celebrate their wins. Okay, so did you have anything else you want to say?
No, that's good. That was good. That was real good.
All right, the final one. Do they see you in the best light, even when you aren't? Talk through that one.
I think this is a big one because often, like, we're both flawed people. That's what. First of all, you got to know that, right? An idea when you go into a marriage, potential marriage, whatever, you're dating somebody, that you're flawed just as much as they're flawed.
Yeah.
But it's hard for us to see our own flaws. So we're dating somebody, we're married to somebody. You need to do more of this. You need to do more of that. You need to be this, that, and the other. That dialogue has to happen, right?
Right.
But to like, even when they aren't in their best, let's say, you know what, I didn't start the dishwasher the other night. It actually happened. I didn't start it, right? And but you still don't look at me and like, you know what, this old trifling such and such, I can't believe. Not to say you can't be upset about it, but like to go to that next level of like, you so sorry. Like that, people do that.
Yeah. And
the idea of like, the person, they dropped the ball. But I just say, you know what, I know you better than that. You're going to get the next time, cool. You know what I mean? We're going to figure it out. We'll figure out a system that works for both of us. But not taking it to the level where, you know what, like, man, I don't know about...
You're attacking the person.
Yeah, you're attacking the person.
Yeah.
That's good, like how you said that.
Yeah. I think that can happen, especially when you're upset about something, just managing and minding your words so it doesn't become that it's it's your character, your integrity, but it's this thing. So how can we fix this thing so that it doesn't get in between us? So, well, this was our kind of untraditional 5 things that you want to make sure that you ask before you get married. Any final thoughts?
No, I think this is just a baseline, right, of questions. I think they're very good questions. I think they were a good top 5 for us. If we were telling somebody, we would actually tell them about these top 5. Hey, ask these 5 questions as a starter, kind of like to yourself. Yeah. First and foremost, say, can I answer these questions, how I feel about them, based off the responses either I give or that person gives. That's good. Ask them to yourself so that you have an answer and you have a good baseline, and then you can compare them for your spouse. Well, thank you for joining us. Make sure that you connect with us on all of our social platforms, and of course, check out our website for more content and resources, fusedmarriages.com. Let's talk about it. Like a Tristin.